And live transcript. Okay, I think I'm set to go here. As always, I'd like to start with thanking our sponsors, who you can see over here, the Care First Health Plan, Arizona, the Satellite Broadcasters Association, United Way Valley of the Sun, Khajiit, and Triad Wireless. And again, we're looking for other folks to step up and to be a sponsor of our efforts here. And so, moving on, I'd like to see who is new online. Craig, if you want to start, we have a few new people who have joined us this morning.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. A quick introduction. I'm Craig Cocciola. I am the Vice President of Cyber NACRA Range Operations at the ABL Cyber Range and Academy. About 32 years in IT, and the last 10 really focused on cybersecurity. I'm with ABL Advanced Business Learning, the parent company, and they're a 23-year-old learning effectiveness organization, training large Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and small business is where I came from in my early years when I met ABL. So I have a considerable background in supporting mid and small sized businesses in IT and security. I'll stop there for at least my intro.
Yeah, so Craig, while you're at it, let's just do your announcement while you're at it.
Oh, sure. Great. Thanks. Yeah. So this week, actually tomorrow in the chat, if that's okay, I went ahead and threw the link up we are holding through AZ Tech Council a panel discussion on the value of hands-on skills development for everyone around cybersecurity. We certainly focus on the more intermediate to advanced cyber operatives that are actually on the jobs in mid and large size corporations, but we also provide an environment for awareness learning for everyone, since cybersecurity is everyone's problem, everyone's responsibility. It's it's a human vulnerability 90% of the time where we have a compromise. So everyone needs to actively participate in that. And so our panel tomorrow will include Michael Manrod, the CISO for Grand Canyon University. I'm on not only the NACRA North American Cyber Range Alliance as a range provider, and we'll be demonstrating that range and showing the value of that particular range, but we're really focusing on is speaking to the value of ranges, cyber ranges, labs, call it whatever you like to label it, as a resource for measurable improvement in practical, real hands-on skills development. The other individuals that are on with us tomorrow, Manny Felix is actually out of Tucson with AZ Cyber Initiative, working with providing training at his organization at the I'd say K through 12, but the truth of the matter is it's really focusing on high school and college students that are getting education, but out of the 3 KSTs, according to NIST NICE, the one that you'll most often be achieving through education is knowledge. So there's some skills probably being developed at education, but this distinctive difference in training is that's where you get the S and the T's, and the tasks and the skills are what are needed to really combat these the problems of us making sure that we are protecting the assets that we're responsible for, either at the home, at the office, or at the corporate level. So that's what that event will be about. And I don't want to overstay my time on here. You didn't give me a time limit, so I tend to go long. I'm going to stop there.
Okay. Thanks. So I met Craig at the Tech Council Cybersecurity Summit. And Carla, I don't know if you want to say anything more about either the summit and or the event coming up.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My apologies, I'm also having issues with my video, but good morning to everyone. The Cybersecurity Summit was a great success. We had actually a lot of you that are in the room or in the call right now were at the cybersecurity, and thank you for coming and helping us make it a successful event. We had over 150 people attend, great presenters, great feedback from all of our attendees. We're looking for the same outcome at this next event coming up that is on the chat now. I am a great fan of all the presenters. I know you all mentioned Manny, and Steve, I know you and I talked about Manny,
Yep.
But the work that he's doing is pretty fantastic. And I know I'm working with him specifically to work on the K through third grade component and getting those boot camps ready for the summer. And he'll talk about that briefly tomorrow at tomorrow's event. I hope that you all can join us. It's now on the chat. And if you all have any issues signing up, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure to get you registered for that event. I think there's lots of great information. And like you said, Steve, this is something that impacts all of us. This is not no longer a luxury. This is no longer, this is a utility that we all need, and getting everybody informed in all different aspects and at all different levels is important. So please make sure that you help us get as many people as we can to that event. And once again, if you have any issues registering or want to attend or having any limitations, reach out to me and I'll make sure to get you registered for the event.
So Carla, there's a small charge, I believe.
Don't worry about that. If that's what's limiting you, just call me and I'll get you registered.
Okay.
My priority is making sure that everybody gets the information that's important and necessary and on board with helping us progress and getting people involved with cybersecurity and understanding the importance.
Okay, thanks, Carla. And Craig, thank you for participating this morning. So moving on, just a reminder that we will be meeting next week, the 23rd, but of course, no meeting on Memorial Day on the 30th. So hope to see you all then. Again, reminder about kibitzing with colleagues. I think most of you know that after our regular meeting that we allow people to stay online who choose to do so, to kibitz, to talk with each other, share information, ask questions, and so forth. And again, we might have 5 people, we might have 15, might last 5 minutes, we may last an hour. It kind of depends on how chatty people are. So again, you're invited to participate in that dialogue. Let's see what else. So again, I want to remind you, we are looking for sponsors. So I'm actually going to send out a separate email, but we are going to be looking at ways to continue the work of this task force. And then I also want to remind you, as I do every week, that we do have the list of participants on the website, and we're asking you, if you haven't done so, once again, please fill out the Google form so we can make sure that we have your contact information. And with that, let's just jump into our updates. Jeff, you want to kick it off, please?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thank you, everyone, for your patience the last few weeks. We had a death in my family that really took everybody off kilter for a little bit, but I am back and we have a ton of stuff going on. First off, the big news, the IIJA, or some folks call it the EJA. I'm going to stick with IIJA. 3 of the NOFOs, the Notice of Funding Opportunities, dropped on Friday. The largest one, the BEAD program, the Digital Equity Program, and the Middle Mile Program. In the case of the BEAD program and the Digital Equity Program, a lot of that comes to the state as a block grant. There are competitive components there. The Middle Mile Program is pretty much a competitive program. So we're lining up projects and working with communities on that. We've had some really interesting discussions with some other states about some really big stuff. Whether or not that comes to fruition, we'll see. But that was something that was encouraged by the folks in DC, where to look at these large projects. We have consultants in-house, and we're bringing in more. One of the biggest challenges with this is workforce, not just in terms of somebody out to splice fiber, but bringing in people who have the level of expertise to do this kind of work. Obviously, we have a great team at ASU with Aaron Carr-Jordan and others on the digital equity side. But I am going to lean on several of you, Mark, I think you in particular, because you have that granular understanding of what's going on in these plants. I read in the comment, your comment regarding wireless versus fiber. That is definitely something that is there. I was told in no uncertain terms, this was a few months back, by the president's broadband advisor, Lisa Hone, that if they're going to put their thumb on the scale, they're going to put their thumb on the scale for fiber. And that's something that we have to look at. So again, we have to play within the rules that are laid out. As much as we think we're special, we're one of 50 states, so we're going to have to play within that context. But this is great news that it's out. We're really engaged and we're excited. So again, whether it's digital equity or something like BEAD, I'm going to be reaching out to several of you individually just to get your take and your interpretation of some of this language. Our Arizona Broadband Development Grant, the deadline that we have set is the 30th of June. We're hoping to pull that in, but as you can imagine, we have 82 that qualified. There are quite a bit of review involved with this. The good news is the applicants are from all over the state. There's tribal applicants. There's some really interesting ones here, even within the Valley, in terms of urban grants. So one thing I want to stress also to those that have applied and others is that not everyone will win the Arizona Broadband Development Grant. Each bit or each tranche of funding comes from the federal government. It has different restrictions and is pointed in different directions. There are folks that will not qualify for the ABDG, or will not win, I should say. They certainly qualify, but they're excellent candidates for the IIJA, for the BEAD program. And we're looking at several different ways to do that. One of the options that we've discussed with our consultants is really micro-targeting some of these smaller communities and even neighborhoods and communities within the cities themselves, and running that RFP process ourselves. That is not set in stone, but that's something that we're looking at because of the nature of the BEAD program. In regard to the Middle Mile program, as I mentioned, we're looking for these large partnerships, not just with other states, which I'd mentioned, but most likely with counties and with tribes to go out and pull in that money. For those of you who have not read our state Middle Mile strategic plan, I encourage you to do that. I think you'll get a lot of clues in what we're thinking there. We've done some great work thus far in the interstates. Expect I-17 to be done this year. I-19 is starting to move forward as well. I-40. I don't know if you all read the news recently, $400 million to widen I-10. That opens up a whole slew of possibilities for us there. Anytime you open up the road, it gives us the opportunity to look at that. And we've had some great proposals on many of our state highways. So these vital arteries are going to be open and active. We've got lots of carriers going out and participating in our different cities, smaller carriers in some of our smaller towns. A couple weeks ago, I had the privilege of going to Kingman and Lake Havasu City for putting the shovel in the ground, groundbreakings. What's interesting about that is in both cases, they went out and through a competitive process selected a carrier. In this case, a company called Allo Communications based out of Omaha, Nebraska. Allo is going to deliver fiber to every address in those communities. 10 gigabit symmetrical service. So we're super excited to have Allo. Allo also won the RFP for Yuma County. So they're going to be a big player here in the state. Steve, I'd like to suggest that maybe we have somebody come on from Allo and give a presentation a little bit about the company to the group. Just
We
so
actually did, Jeff,
Pardon me?
previously. We have. that
we
done.
have, okay, good. I must have missed that one. They're good people and they're investing. God, I'm trying to remember the last number I heard. Potentially $400 million. They're creating hundreds of good jobs. So these are the kind of folks we want here in Arizona. Because they're not dealing with existing infrastructure that they have to upgrade, it's definitely a leap forward. So this is one of many I think we're going to see. So again, as you look at this, I think wireless is definitely an important way to look at the world in certain areas, but fiber is definitely the focus right now and the direction we're going for a lot of good reasons. There are some areas that we can't get fiber to for geography or just sheer cost. But just remember that fiber is the focus here at the state and at the federal level. So glad to be back. If there's any questions I can answer, I'll be happy to answer them, or maybe offline. I know you got a tight schedule, Steve. But again, I will be reaching out to several of you just to get your interpretation. Mark, you live for this stuff, so I want to make sure I talk to you and Steve and others. So I appreciate your time.
You bet. Any questions for Jeff? Questions, comments for Jeff?
Steve, Mark,
Mark.
I just want to mention, I posted the link to the new landing page called Internet for All that kind of aggregates information. But I also did download the fact sheet and NOFOs and combine them for each of the 3 programs. So if you download the zip file, you'll have all 3 NOFOs preceded by their fact sheets. So may save you some fishing around.
Okay. Just a reminder that as we include the chats, that the chats don't necessarily have the files. So if you want to download those files, you need to do that before we end the meeting. So just FYI. And I also do try to add all of those files when I send the meeting updates. Any other comments or questions for Jeff before we move on?
Steve, this is Derek.
Yeah, Derek.
Can you hear me? Yeah, Jeff, I just had a question about the ABBG program. I know that there was a comment period opened a little over a week ago, maybe almost 2 weeks ago. Any update as to how many comments you received and if affected projects, if and when they'll hear?
Yeah, I mean, again, the comment period was an opportunity for the incumbent carriers to weigh in on projects in their area. In some cases, we have situations where carriers have started multi-gigabit construction projects that just weren't reflected in the numbers we saw. But they do not have veto power over what's going on within those areas. So I don't know the number off the top of my head. There's a lot of comments, and honestly, I can't tell you which ones are affected and which ones are not, but we're definitely taking that into consideration. I think we take a lot of things into consideration. I think we have to look at what's working and what's not working. For those of you who have not read the article about Tucson, I know Steve and others had sent that to me. That's a model that hasn't worked. It hasn't worked traditionally and clearly didn't work in Tucson. So we have to be realistic about these are taxpayer dollars, and we want to make sure that we spend the money in the right ways. And we're not going to overbuild in areas that don't need it. That being said, there are some comments that were protective, I guess would be the word I would use. If there's no actual reason why people can't provide service in those areas, we're certainly not going to tell them no. So I know that's kind of cryptic, but just know that there's a lot of decision making going on right now with the grant. We want to make sure that this money is spent in such a way that it actually gets implemented. And if you look at Lake Havasu City and you look at Kingman, those are good examples of what can be done. We don't want to settle for a carbon copy bad version of that. We want to go for the good stuff. And as we continue to build out, you're going to hear a lot more of these announcements as the grants are allocated. You're going to hear stuff from existing carriers that are making huge leaps forward, leaping outside of their existing territories. We've had some stuff, I've been told of stuff that I can't talk about now, but Boy, I tell you what, there's some communities in the state, just like Kingman and Lake Havasu City, they're going to go from really bad service to really good service within the 18 months. So I'm excited about the program. I just ask for patience on this and know that there's plenty of money here. We just have to make sure that we stay within the guidelines and get it out to the different communities.
So Jeff and Rory was asking, is the information available on where all the build outs are planned? Rory, you want to clarify what you're looking for?
About the Kingman and the Lake Havasu City build outs? Or regarding the grant? Because we're not going to release information on the grant at this point.
I was asking, you were provided information from many of the carriers who are planning deployments. Is that information private, or is that going to become public?
It's private at this point. I mean, I guess if you wanted to, ask after the fact, we could look at that. But it's just another bit of information that goes into the decision-making process. No different than looking at the maps or anything else to determine who qualifies and who doesn't qualify.
Are those maps available of the current build outs that are already on the schedule? Are those available, or would that be updated in real-time analysis?
No, I mean, we're looking at the NTIA maps right now in terms of decision-making on this grant. We are working on a state broadband map as we speak with lots of different agencies, Department of Education, ADOA, and others, and pulling that together. So that is not ready yet, but that is something that's a big project we're working on as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff? If not, let's move on. Mala, you're up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and Mala, please tell people who you are, please.
Okay, this is Mala Muralidharan. I'm the state E-rate coordinator for public libraries. Mylan is my counterpart. We work on E-rate together for schools and public libraries. And E-rate brings in funding for internet access as well as internal connections to make those make the internet work for schools and libraries. Starting with E-rate, wave 4 of funding for 2022 has been released, and Arizona had applied for 120 million almost, and we've been approved already for $30 million. This funding is ongoing. In fact, even 2021 funding has not been completed yet. So this is a long process and it's in the pipeline. I put in the chat the link to the survey that is being conducted by Funds for Learning. This is the 12th national survey that they are doing. It's really vital to fill that survey out. There are no other surveys being done of the applicants, schools and libraries. So please encourage any school or library that you're in touch with to go ahead and do fill the survey. Even if they're using a consultant, it is good for them to voice their opinion, because this is aggregated and presented to the members of Congress as well as to FCC. The deadline is May 27th. There are ongoing discussions on the bidding portal, which we've been talking about quite a bit on this forum. I'm not going to elaborate on it. Anyone who needs more details, please either go back to the previous notes or contact me, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. Would love to hear everyone's views and opinions on the E-rate bidding portal that FCC has initiated. There's also ongoing discussions on Build America, Buy America, BABA, as it's currently known as. This is the Office of Management and Budgets, OMB. They've issued a memo saying, giving guidelines that anything that is purchased out of federal funding should have at least 55% of their components, cost of the components, stuff that has been built or made in the US. And this has already started its application on May 14th. That was the deadline. And so anything that is being funded federally either has to be built in America or you have to apply for a waiver. So there's still lots of discussions and disagreements on this, but it's in effect right now. The other big news for the week is that Jessica Rosenwasser, the FCC chairwoman, announced a proposal to allow Wi-Fi on buses, school buses, to be eligible for E-rate funding. This is to help close the homework gap. We've been asking for this for quite a while, and this proposal was announced at the National Coalition for Technology and Education Training just last week. So this is a huge victory. The school buses were not eligible so far, although bookmobiles, library bookmobiles were eligible, but now school buses are eligible, and the rules are being written to make that happen for the next E-rate cycle, that is 2023-24. The 22-23 E-rate cycle that is currently on, it wasn't funded in time for the applicants to apply for this. It's interesting because this was not one of the top priorities, although we've been fighting for this for a while. It was not one of the top priorities. The top priority, you will be happy to learn, more than 90%, 97% of the surveyed applicants said that cybersecurity was the utmost importance, and that is not being covered by the E-rate funding. So we are doing the right discussions at the right time. So let's continue these discussions. Let's continue to fight for network security and cybersecurity being funded through the E-rate program. The other top priorities that needed E-rate support that from the trends report was having a second internet line for reliability, for VoIP infrastructure, and surprisingly for telephone services. And after that, the last was the school bus Wi-Fi. So hopefully we will get some of the others as well through the FCC's discussions. ACP, as of May 9th, we had about 258,000 households that had signed up out of about 11 million that have signed up nationally. The toolkit, a really good toolkit, I must say, is on connect-arizona.com. You can click on the link that is in the sponsors link, the resource link on AZBSN. It's connect-arizona.com//ACP. So there are lots of good documents there for promotion, flyers in Spanish and in English, and navigators who can help with this, even Navajo speaking navigators. Nicole is on the line. Once I finish talking, maybe if Nicole, you have anything else to add about this, that would be a good time to do it. With Emergency Connectivity Fund, the third ECF application filing window closed last Friday, the Friday, May 13th. Again, schools and libraries were eligible to apply for this funding for services between July 1, 2022 and December 31st, 2023. And they can apply for equipment as well as hotspots for library patrons as well as school students. This time, of course, this is the third round of applications. This time, of course, many of them had to split out the consortium members. That is, they were not applying in groups because of the prioritizing of the discount rates. So if you applied as a consortium member, you averaged the discount rate that you were getting, that the members, individual members of that consortium had. But since they were not sure, FCC was not sure of being able to fund every single applicant, it will be prioritized based on the discount rate. So those with a higher discount, NSLP discount, will be funded before those that are at a lower discount level. So anyone who needs more information on that, I'll be happy to discuss with them. And as Mark and several of you mentioned, we are going through the NOFO in detail. I've been poring over it during the weekend to see what the highlights are, and we will probably do some sort of documentation on what the priorities are in the NOFO. Waiting for more information on the telehealth project that we are working on. We're planning a soft inauguration in June. And stay tuned. We'll get you more details as soon as it is ready. Back to you, Steve.
Okay, any questions for Mala?
Hey, Steve, just a really quick comment. We don't say this enough. Thank you, Mala. I mean, I talk to many people around the country, and the work that our state library does is above and beyond what any other states are doing right now. Mala and Nicole have done a fantastic job with the EBB, now the ACP, and that process. We're very lucky. We have some great partners in Arizona. Mylan's done an incredible job with the E-rate builds as well, helping with the mapping. And just thanks, Mala. You guys have done an incredible job, and we're going to continue to work with you. And we're excited about this next phase.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And so that certainly, Holly, that was also directed to you. And do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think my team members have it covered, but thank you. And thank you for the kind words, Jeff.
Okay.
No problem, Holly. We're like I said, we're real excited to have you all, and you've done a great job with leadership. You have a great team.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's move on. Cindy and Nicole. Nicole, if you have anything else you want to add regarding the library, but you guys want to talk about some of the digital inclusion updates?
Sure, yeah, I'll reiterate that we do have our ACP resource page up, and our navigators have been excitedly and sometimes a little bit of ire supporting those signups, because it has been a bit of a confusing process for people on the ground, but we're all thrilled about the Biden administration's announcement last week, and we're just kind of hoping that we avoid some of the confusion that we've been experiencing with the crossover from the EBB to ACP. But we still have some great success stories with getting people signed up through this program, and I think overall it's going to do a lot of good for those who are needing this affordable option. Our materials are available for organizations that want to inform their communities about the program, or help sign up their patrons or their customers, or they're also welcome to send them over to our digital navigators with Connect Arizona, who are happy to help, or to assist those the helpers as well. On Thursday at noon, we're convening another Digital Inclusion Network lunch meeting, where we'll be touching on our coordinated ACP outreach effort that we've been working on, which is really just sharing our resources. And we're trying to do a little bit of an expanded outreach pilot in partnership with Common Sense Media as well, to make sure that the individuals who can benefit most from this program are going to be targeted there. So we'll touch a little bit on ACP, but we will continue our discussion of planning and coordinating for the National or International Digital Inclusion Week, which is in October. So we're inviting and encouraging attendance by practitioners or people who do some work with their local governments. We're really trying to make sure we have some consistent messaging that can go out to some of those decision makers, and that we can kind of keep up these discussions about digital inclusion and what that means for people on the ground. So that is Thursday, this Thursday, the 19th.
Okay. Anything else, Nicole?
Not at this time.
And I don't think Cindy's on the call today.
Not today.
So Nicole, I was actually thinking as we've been talking that not today, but maybe next week or the week after, that we should take some time to review the website. You guys have done a lot of work on it, got some great stuff. And so it'd be a really good time for us to reshare with everybody all the great work you've done with that website.
Oh, happy to.
Okay. Any questions for Nicole? Janet, I don't believe Janet's on the call this morning. So we're going to jump over her. And this time I'm going to remember the Department of Education. So Sophia, I don't know if you're online, but Kelly, I saw that you're here, and I don't believe Mylan's on this morning.
Here, hello.
Morning, Sophia. Anything you want to tell us?
I just want to share that over the last couple of weeks, we've been announcing the recipients of our American Rescue Plan funds that we did through a grant. I'm not going to go over them all because there are so many that we've announced so far and more to come, but I am going to put the website in the chat. Especially if you work in or with education, it's definitely worth taking a peek at who we've funded, because there could be opportunities for collaboration, and we would of course love to see as much collaboration as possible.
Okay. Any questions for Sophia? Okay.
I'm still taking notes.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, quick question on the digital inclusion subject.
Yeah. Kirk?
Can we get Erin to report out a little bit on a weekly basis if she's actually on the call? Because she has a perspective in digital inclusion that very few of us do. Sorry about my technical difficulties.
Probably a good idea. Okay, I'll talk to Erin. I think you're on the call, Erin, but let's chat about that.
Happy to.
And
Hi,
I'm
Kirk.
always putting her on the spot because I only think of it when I see her face and then hear a subject that we need help with. So I mean, Steve, Erin could report out now if she has anything to report.
Good morning, Kirk. Actually, we are planning a statewide digital navigator training. We're working on the dates, and I will update this group as soon as we have those dates. It'll be sometime in June, but we would love for you to invite anyone who you think would benefit from that program. I just actually reached out to Nicole about collaborating with her team as well, and I'm happy to start updating the group.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, Kelly, I believe you're online. You want to tell us? I know you guys have been busy.
Yes, I am Kelly from the Office of Digital Teaching and Learning with the Arizona Department of Education. Thanks for having me. It's fun to see all the faces and people that I have been meeting and having the opportunity to meet with. I do not have any updates this week. Just as you mentioned, we have been busy. We are hosting monthly town hall meetings for K-12 educators to talk about pertinent technology issues, which we've had 2 meetings and they have been dominated by cybersecurity, which is needed for sure. And we are also looking to start a group for the academic community as well within the K-12 setting. And that is more details on that to come in the future. We're starting to outline that and put that together now. But that's it from me.
Okay, any questions for Kelly?
Hey, Kelly, this is Jeff. I've heard a little bit about the Parent Educator Academy that's run at Phoenix Union District from Stephanie, who I know a little bit personally. Are there any other programs around the state that you're aware of that involve parents within the schools themselves in terms of tech support and working directly with other students' families?
It's a good question. I can see a few people are unmuting to chime in, and I will let them and also let Sophia. I know as far as the Department of Education, our focus is the teachers and the students and not necessarily the families. However, the feedback for my office in particular has been, what can we do for families? And you mentioned the Parent Educator Academy. I know that All in Education, and I think you had said, Stephanie, they are doing a lot of work with that. And then I think that Mala had unmuted to share some details, but I will say that, again, the focus for the Department of Ed is the teachers and the students and not the families. However, the feedback has been that there is a need for parents. And so as we work with vendors and different resources within this topic, that is definitely something that I am considering and hearing, so that maybe we can at least connect people to resources that already exist.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, we funded the Parent Educator Academy with one of our earlier rounds of federal funding. To my knowledge, it's a pretty unique program. That's part of the reason we funded it. She's really trying to rep getting people jobs and getting people more involved in the schools and fixing some of the shortages of positions at schools, kind of all in one initiative. Anyone who knows me personally knows I love that kind of thinking. But I don't think anyone can really touch kind of the way she's and that organization is trying to wrap several problems into one solution.
So Sophia, based on what you've seen, because I understand it's a very successful program, do you think the focus should be narrowed just to the task at hand, which is supporting the other families with tech support, or do you think that we should look at this as a workforce issue also?
I think that there's a lot of potential with this idea to be more than one thing. There are a lot of open positions that are teachers at schools. And we know, especially in the communities that All in Education supports, which is the Latinx community, that they're not always as connected in schools. So I do think there is potential here for it to be broader, but I am enjoying seeing the success, especially in this time, in this moment, of their focus around technology and digital access and things like that. But I do think there's potential for it to be more.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on? So I don't believe Lee is on. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wes.
I want to butt right in here. I was not aware, but it's not unusual, that Phoenix Union had involved parents to a significant degree. I live in that district. One, I can offer to go talk to Chad and get an idea how he set that up, what his criteria was, the whole thing, how it works. Or two, maybe we could convince him to present to us, even though it's a Monday morning early, and he runs a Union High School district, so his Mondays are rather complicated. But if we're going to build this out, and I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know, we need to go after the parents when we're reaching out to the kids. So think of me as your tool, Steve. Use me as you will.
Sure will, and it's good to see you, Wes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was in ritual seclusion for a while, but I'm better now.
Well, good. Glad to hear it. Okay, moving on. Derek, you have anything else? Derek, you still there? Hello? Apparently not. So moving on. So Wes, while you're here, you and Rory have any more updates on the Final Mile project?
Well, from my view, both as a district participant and a board member, from what I see, we're moving along, and this the proof of concept part of this has been really interesting and gave us a lot to learn. We have some districts that are ready to go. We're ready to flip the switch. We've got other districts where we're still struggling to get parents to accept the educational part of this, so that we can, our providers can start providing commodity internet and getting a little return on investment. In my district, we're learning all about ponderosa pines and how to deal with the fact that our district office, where the tower is going to go, is zoned residential, which gave Coconino County all the ammunition they need to shut down the thought of that tower. But I know Rory, like he always is figuring out workarounds. When and if we get additional funding, we will have the knowledge base to move forward, I think even better than we did the last time. So right now we have 9 projects total, 5 up in various stages of design. 2 of those are actually, I think, workable. And we've got 4 more teed up that Mylan's dealing with. And as far as ARSA goes, everybody is just wondering where they're going to get employees. I have one district over in the Colorado River that is short 32 teachers.
Wow.
Any of us could go out right now and get a high-paying $20 an hour job as bus drivers. Anyway, thanks for your patience with me whenever I'm not here. I always enjoy these talks and I appreciate it.
So Wes, you mentioned proof of concept, and perhaps not today, but maybe in the future, maybe at a future meeting, you can talk more about, the kind of what's working, what's not working, what do you see challenges that may be lessons learned for others.
That would be a Mylan Rory thing.
Okay.
Like I said, never forget you're dealing with a guy here who understands people very well, but still believes electricity comes from the wall switch and that internet comes from the remote.
Okay. Rory, you want to add anything before we move on?
No, Wes has said it pretty eloquently. Some of the projects went really well. Like Pima, for example, is up and running, and Paloma is up and running. A couple of them are pretty close to deployment. Actually, Wes's area, we're actually trying to schedule the guys working up there this week. But zoning is an issue in a lot of these counties, and Coconino is one of the biggest issue we ran into. Fortunately, the OTARD rule lets us kind of get around that particular problem. So we're moving forward with the project. We should start rolling stuff out there by the end of the week. So.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for anybody before we move on? Apparently not. So we're going to move on. Can you all see my screen now? My other screen? Yes, no, maybe?
We see the tail end of your agenda, Steve.
Pardon?
Still seeing your agenda.
Oh, okay. Well, let me try this then. And try to share. Give me a chance here. Okay, this is the one I want. Okay, can you all see that now?
There you go.
Okay, so as you all know, those of you who have been on these calls for a long time know that I generally do not present, but cybersecurity has become a really important issue for this group and others, as you heard from Kelly and others. And so I thought it was, we began some, well, we've had some sort of discussions previously, and then we heard from Ryan with Homeland Security last week. And that was really a good way for us to begin to further this discussion about cybersecurity and the task force. So, as I said, I don't normally present, but I thought it would be useful to share with you back in 2003, 2004, that I had convened a bunch of different folks to create what we called the Arizona Cybersecurity Alliance. And we started this alliance primarily because, well, because we knew that cybersecurity was an issue at that time, just as it is today, and even probably even more today. But what the other thing was that we knew that there were a number of cybersecurity organizations in the state doing some great stuff. But most of those organizations were targeted primarily to either IT or cybersecurity professionals, and not really the end users, and particularly small businesses, nonprofit organizations. So I convened a whole bunch of folks. We met quite a while, sort of like we've done with this task force. And out of that, they created AZSecurity.org and the Arizona Cybersecurity Alliance. And so, assuming that this is going to work, there we go. So the Alliance was, at that time, I led an organization called the Community Information and Telecommunications Alliance, which is long gone. That was a Tucson-based organization, but we were involved statewide with ATIC and many others. And so the intent was that we wanted to understand the security threats, and we wanted to develop some strategies to help reduce some of the personal, customer, and business risks that were out there. We were targeting IT professionals and certainly leaders of small businesses and nonprofit organizations. The task force included, just like we do here, we had small businesses, large businesses, nonprofits, law enforcement, government, information technology, and security professionals. And as I mentioned earlier, that while we have a number of different security organizations, that we did coordinate and bring them into the fold also, because we felt it was important that we all collaborate together. So our plans were, and I've got more details about this in another document, but I'm going to just hit the highlights here. But we needed to do a public awareness and media campaign. We still know today that a lot of people still do not understand the threats, don't understand the risks about cybersecurity and why they need to do something to protect themselves. We also wanted to do presentations to business, civic, nonprofit organizations. We developed a website and toolkit, and I'll share some of that with you in just a minute. Wanted to do email announcements and discussion lists and security events, and we did do some forums and conferences on cybersecurity. So for the IT professionals, we wanted to look at security workshops, support groups, an online discussion group for IT professionals, links to other security organizations, and announcements of meetings and professional development opportunities. And that was not just for us, but what other people were doing, what kinds of meetings were other people doing, what kind of professional development opportunities, as well as what could we as an organization do. So we developed a website and a toolkit, and I'll share some more information about that in just a minute. But we created www.azsecurity.org, and that site is no longer live, but I will share with you that I did find it. If you've never heard of the Wayback Machine, it is actually a site that captures a lot of sites that are no longer alive, but you can find those sites. So I actually found our site, and I'll share that in just a minute. But we did a self-guided security assessment, tips to safeguard systems, links to organizations and resources, a database of security consultants, calendar meetings and events, and database of education and training resources, and security news headlines. And I want to say something about this, because this also, I think, relates to, and of course, a lot of this stuff relates to a lot of the other discussions we've been having, not just about cybersecurity, but technical support and so forth. But one of the things that we found is that, and we, again, this is pretty similar to the issues we're finding today, is that it's great to tell people, okay, so you need to do something. Here's the things that you need to do. And many of them go, I have no clue how to do any of that. And so we also had put up a directory of consultants, so that if people wanted to find somebody that could help them, that they would have access to those consultants. And that could be nonprofits, it could be professional, it could be paid or whatever. But again, we really felt that, so if you tell people, well, you need to change your password on your router, and they go, what is a router? And how would I go about changing that password? That they're going to need that kind of technical support. So this really is an extension of all the digital inclusion discussions we've been having about the need to be able to provide support for cybersecurity as well. So this will just give you some of the examples of what we included in the checklist. We wanted to make sure that people have written security, business continuity, and disaster recovery plans. So a lot of businesses don't have those continuity plans. And so if they get, which we've been seeing a lot of lately, if they get hacked, how are they going to recover from any data losses? Folks don't even think about having insurance. Do they have insurance coverage? And many general business insurance, now this may have changed now. Again, this was done a long time ago. Don't have don't provide coverage for business continuity and disaster recovery. So many companies now provide some of that as a rider or as a separate policy. And again, I haven't kept up as much with that. So others of you who are on this call may know more about that than I do. But again, it was important that they knew about that. Of course, if you have an always on connection, make sure you've got firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and so forth. Make sure you have virus protection and security patches. Make sure you're doing security patches, performing backups, ensuring that your backups are physically secure from theft and fire, protect your systems and data with passwords, complex passwords, and change them regularly, and log off at the end of the day, and so forth. And so that was just, just to give you an example of the toolkit that we put together. And I'm going to share more information about that right now. And I'm going to show you the website that we developed. This is the homepage of that website. And I'll share with you the toolkit. Okay, so wanted to get it more into the toolkit. So things like, well, this is just really is what I was just talking to you about, but then with more detail about having security plans, about dealing with employees and so forth. And then we also had links to security resources. So this was security resources that were out there and how people could find additional information. Now, keep in mind, when we did this website, and we may want to do something similar, but when we did this website, again, this was 2003. So there's tons of cybersecurity resources that are out there. And there was even at that time. However, we did this as a Arizona website, because we know that people like to do what close to them. So whether that's a local community, whether that's a state or whatever, that we tried to provide information locally, or in this case for Arizona. So we had, of course, national organizations and resources that were out there for cybersecurity. And then going back for just a second.
Steve, we're not seeing what you're showing. We're still just seeing the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a bummer. Let's see. All right, well, I'm sorry, go ahead. Who is that? Well, sorry about that. I'll come back to it in just a second here. So we also, as I mentioned, put up a directory of consultants that we were aware of and how people could find them. So let me stop sharing here for a second. Let's see if I can find this.
Yeah, that's my one feedback to Zoom too, is their sharing doesn't let you jump around. You have to reshare every time.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Well, that's the PowerPoint here. Oh, that's the PowerPoint. This is it, I think.
Sometimes with Zoom, if you click on the actual monitor instead of the item, it will let you keep sharing different layers.
Okay, so I'll have to look into that, but in the meantime, can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll come back, I'll go back over some of what I had before. So this is the page that we had with security consultants. Now we know today that a lot more businesses and organizations are now doing managed services because they don't have the time or the expertise to do this. Of course, one of the challenges, particularly in dealing with small business people, is, if we wanted to do a webinar, of course, now today we can do a lot more online than we could at that time. But the challenge, particularly for small businesses, I can't close my business and go to a webinar for a day. And so as I mentioned earlier, so you convinced me I need to do this, not sure what to do. So maybe I'll get to it sometime in the future and don't know how to proceed. And so they forget about it. They don't know how to do that. And that's why, again, we were looking at the issue of consultants. So let me go back to, so, again, we had the self-assessment, finding a consultant, links and resources, news and headlines, and so forth. And so I just wanted to share this briefly with you because I think for me that it becomes a way for us to begin to think about how this task force might get involved in addressing cybersecurity issues. Again, it's a big issue, just like we've discussed with other issues of how do we get people connected, how do we help them to use the technology and all of that sort of thing. Now we have an even more complicated issue of cybersecurity. And again, as I've said many times, that now that we're connecting more people, we're giving them devices, we're giving them internet, but I'm not sure that we're really talking about security. And actually, this is a question that I don't know the answer to about folks, these organizations and companies who are providing internet. Are they providing some kind of security along with that? So Rory, that might be an answer question for you, for example. Are you doing anything with providing security for folks? Okay. No answer. So anyway, that's all I want to do for today, but I do want to open it up to thoughts, comments, and so forth. And then I think that what we're going to do is, like we did when we first started the task force, is to create another a cybersecurity team and really bring folks together and map out a strategy on how we're going to help address this issue. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if any of you have any thoughts that you'd like to share.
Cybersecurity, this is Lori. Cybersecurity seems like, it is obviously a strong focus right now. And I just have to wonder, I know from a service provider perspective, there's a certain amount, we do provide some cybersecurity for some sites. A lot of the schools have their own processes and equipment in place. I just wonder if there needs to be, because of the liability and the protection level that is required for students, I just wonder if this would be a situation where there might be a tiered approach in terms of funding and in terms of offsetting risk and partitioning out various pieces of cybersecurity so that the service providers can provide some level, and then the schools will have some protections on their own also. Does that make sense?
Sure. Well, we know that just like we've had with other discussions, we've got lots of different populations that are going to have different kinds of needs. And we know with the Department of Ed that I don't know if Ryan is still on the line or not, but they have started a relationship with Homeland Security. So again, I think that how we're going to proceed and how we're going to segment this all needs to be determined. But Kelly or Sophia, do you want to say anything more from Kelly? You mentioned that a lot of folks were talking about cybersecurity at your town hall.
Yes, so I'm going to say I just ended a phone call, so I have been in and out of this conversation. But as
Okay.
far as cybersecurity, like I said, we've had 2 town hall meetings, and this has been the predominant topic. And Ryan Murray from the Department of Homeland Security, which I'm sure you said, participated in our first. And now in these particular meetings, we are noticing a trend where we've had about 25 to 30 participants, and they are K-12 representatives. So they all work at schools within the state. And the trend now is leaning toward people sharing their experiences. So last week we had Christine Dickinson from Maricopa Unified share about their DDoS attack in 2018. And there's really space and time for a conversation happening in these meetings where people are sharing from learned experiences. Here's what happened and here's what we did, and almost kind of a best or common practices situation, which the group is finding useful and helpful. So in those meetings, we are trying to now set aside time for that as one way to share and learn and make progress in the cybersecurity and cyber attack area. So hopefully that is helpful information as far as why you called on me to speak.
Yeah.
So if I may, I want to kind of make a couple comments, Steve.
Sure.
The way that we often, I think, view cybersecurity is at the security professional level and looking at DDoS attacks and looking at IDSs and IPSs, a way to detect and protect. And my concern is that though that's an important piece for sharing information, sharing threats, threat sharing, all part of the ACTRA initiative around the state and with large corporations and mid-sized and smaller companies, it doesn't address the individual, particularly parents, children, who are more than often the ones that are initiating and clicking on that malware infected link or that cross-site script that they now think they're on a site that they aren't on, and they're providing information to a malintender that is going to utilize that information. And so as a quick example, I can, just some of this may feel too elementary, but it just to me is where the foundation of cybersecurity lies, in the end user and the training of those end users, the repetitive responses to them when they see a link and they've been, kind of mentally conditioned, behaviorally conditioned to say, ooh, I'm not going to click that link. Ooh, I'm not going to respond to that text message on Facebook. I finally have my family at a point where they stop and they say, is this a concern? This Facebook link came from somebody I know, and yet this doesn't look like something they would send. And as much as it's that repetitive telling them, if you have the hair on the back of your neck come up, if you have that question mark, the little voice in your head says stop, you're probably right. You need to stop. And so there's those kinds of training events that are, again, very down in the individual end user, hands-on keyboard sessions that need to be held. And I just offer that to me, as much as having the SME, the operatives providing input at the business or the agency level, department level, we need to also be down in the trenches with those that are utilizing websites and software and with vulnerabilities that they don't recognize, they don't see it until it's too late.
Yeah. And I think that, Craig, that's pretty consistent with what our issues are. because that's where a lot of our interests are, is not so much at the corporate level where, as you know, lots of stuff's happening at the corporate level. They're all trying to do more, obviously, as are the states, governments and everything.
Right.
But I think that's particularly, as I mentioned earlier, as we're giving out more of these devices, we're connecting all these families and kids and students and so forth, that's where we really have to address a lot of those needs.
Good. Newcomers, so I probably am, maybe still learning some of the mission, some of the purposes of the meeting, and so sorry if I'm out.
Not a problem.
Restating the obvious to you. To everyone.
Not a problem. Any other thoughts, comments that anybody has this morning?
Steve, I did want to, not cybersecurity, if it's a general call, the feds did put out, the White House did put out, I think it's about a 6-page memo on intents to coordinate about right-of-way and coordinate between agencies on information. So so many projects are inordinately delayed, and I'm not sure how effective their fixes will be, but I did post a link to the White House document, and kind of lost in the clutter of the new big exciting NOFOs, but that's also an important federal initiative.
Thanks. So actually, Mark, while you mentioned that, if I don't know how many of you ever read any of the stuff I send out, but I have been trying to pick out of the chats any particular announcements and links and so forth, and include those while I send the full chat out. But I try to pull out the key points and include those in the email update. So if you read my stuff, you'll see a lot of those, the announcements that were made at the meeting. I just wanted to point that out. So any other thoughts or comments this morning about anything about the cybersecurity or anything else at this point?
Steve, I'll chime in.
Sure, Debbie.
I sometimes feel that, when I do comment, it's like, hey, Gentech is doing this, and it's like, I don't know, we're prideful or something like that. And it's not the case at all. The truth is that we really tried to connect with a lot of government agencies, and schools are schools, and it seems like a walled garden there. But we have taught just in one course alone, 1,700 kids in computer builds. And in that course, we integrate a really serious cybersecurity component where we're talking to kids and their families, actually, last couple of years online, about security and getting into, all kinds of LAN-WAN, all kinds of, I'm going to speak out of turn here because our guys that teach this course are cybersecurity graduates just recently from GCU or UAT, and they're very, very bright, and we're bringing a lot of concepts to kids. We have looked into space already to put together a cybersecurity warfare range, at lack of a better word to use it, because we understand that districts don't want to breach their at least they don't have the kids I did when I was teaching, right? Sure they do. Anyway, breach their networks because they're government agencies. So as a private entity, we can set up these kinds of environments. And we even thought of doing it as an after-school program, looking at middle school and high school. So we're in discussions with some space on that, with some players on that. The only piece we don't have is the education.
Sure. Are you there, Debbie?
We lost Debbie.
Yeah. Okay, well, hopefully Debbie will come back and hopefully she can hear this, because I think whatever strategy we use, as I mentioned with the alliance that I mentioned earlier, that we have lots of different organizations like what Craig's doing and Debbie's doing, lots of different, and Ryan's doing, and all these folks. And so as we've tried to in the past, is to not compete with what other people are doing, but to make these, is to make the connections, see where people can best collaborate and what's a longer term strategy. Because as we know, there's a lot of work to be done in this space. It's not just going to be one particular organization, but it's going to be a lot of folks coming together, and for us to have a clear strategy and perhaps even additional funding to be able to really address this issue on a broader basis.
Yeah, I'll just drop one more little note. There's so many different opportunities out there. Cyber Patriot for high schools, even middle schoolers, to participate in education / training combined in those competitive environments provides a great resource and vehicle for having, kind of cyber clubs. Chandler High School out in the Chandler Unified School District, we set up a range for them out there so that they could start working on the tools and understanding what different threats are and what vulnerabilities are, and et cetera, and how to utilize some of the tools to find those vulnerabilities. So, and much of that's being done in a after school, extracurricular activity, my old school words, program. And so there's those kind of things that can be done, and we can potentially help. My organization can potentially help setting some of those kind of things up. In some cases with donated equipment and et cetera, it doesn't have to cost anything. We'll help to physically set it up and get it up and running. We can even run some remote training sessions with individuals. So there's lots of those kinds of opportunities out there, but I just wanted to highlight Cyber Patriot as a organized activity that gives schools and instructors a resource to bring people in.
So I think maybe, and again, we're kind of out of time today, but I think maybe one of our first priorities is going to be just to find out who are all the different organizations out there, just like we've been doing with the task force. Who are the different organizations out there? What do they do? Who is their target? What kind of resource do they bring to the table? Because that's, I think, is a good way for us to get started. But I do want to, what I'm going to be looking for is some champions. If we're going to make this work, we're going to need to have, like we did when we first started the task force, that we had a couple of champions who led that particular initiative. And what we did with those meetings when we first started is we asked three things. One is, what's the problem? What's the need? Secondly, what's the barriers, or why isn't it that way now? And the third thing is, what do we need to do to address those barriers? And so I'm anticipating that we will move in that direction of creating a team, getting some champions, and begin this process of mapping out where we need to go with this initiative. It's a big issue, lots of different parts, and just like we've talked again about all the issues about digital inclusion, and we got the same issues with seniors and low-income folks, and all across the board, small businesses, and on, that all have needs out there, and different ways that we're going to be able to address those needs. So in my opinion, we need to really do a strategic strategy on how we're going to proceed. So any other comments for today? Anything else that people, Shelby, so I'm sorry, Shelby, I should really include you regularly. So Mylan, of course, was not on the call today. If you're still there, do you have anything that you want to comment on before we move on?
Sorry. No, I think the various folks ahead of me have already made, the various updates, like Mala and Kelly and stuff like that with, and Russ with what's going on in our neck of the woods.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, but thanks for asking.
You bet. So anyway, anything, if there's nothing else, I'm going to end the recording, and anybody who wants to hang online to Kibitz for a while, you're welcome to to participate. And with that, we'll see you all next week.
Thank you all very much. I'm going to have to run off here to the next meeting. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for participating, Craig.
My pleasure.